Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because, honestly, we're looking at a massive shift happening right now in enterprise technology. For a really long time, the default move has just been to rent a generic AI model through an API and, well, kind of just hope for the best. But for highly regulated industries, that era is coming to a hard stop. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the end of renting generic AI and how the smartest organizations out there are moving to completely own their models.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the end of renting AI. Then we'll break down three distinct paths: Tinker, the DIY buffet; Forge, the managed and sovereign route; and Microsoft, the integrated ecosystem. Finally, we'll look at the axis of control and how to choose your own AI moat.
So let's jump right into Section 1, the end of renting AI, and why generic APIs are failing regulated industries.
Consider this our wake-up call. If you're in a high-consequence vertical, like healthcare, banking, or defense, relying on the generosity of AI labs and their generic APIs isn't just some slight inconvenience, it's a massive compliance risk. And that brings us to this core promise that's actively being pitched to enterprise buyers today. Build a model that's yours, not a rented API. Whether we're talking about a defense contractor or a huge health system, these differences aren't just marketing fluff. They are the entire basis of the decision. The crucial point here is that for these specific industries, a generic API is literally a non-starter, and it comes down to three huge factors. First up, data constraints. Because of things like HIPAA, GDPR, or the EU AI Act, sending your data to a US-based API, that's a direct compliance violation, not just a preference issue. Second is domain reasoning. Sure, a generic model is great at retrieving documents, but an enterprise model needs to actually think in ICD healthcare codes, Basel III financial regulations, or even analyze radar signatures. And third, procurement and lineage. Risk officers absolutely have to know who owns the resulting weights. They need 100% certainty that their customer data isn't secretly leaking into a vendor's future training runs.
Moving on to Section 2, Tinker, the DIY buffet. This is the researcher's route to open weights. So Tinker is built by a company called Thinking Machines, and it's basically a training API built around a deliberately minimal idea. It's a real DIY workshop. It exposes 4 low-level functions. You can compute a gradient, step the optimizer, sample, and save state. It essentially hands you the keys to drive the training yourself on their GPU clusters using what's called LoRa fine-tuning. That's where you train a small adapter rather than rewriting all the giant base weights. And the best part, you get this open model buffet to choose from. You can fine-tune bases like Inkling, Qwen, DeepSeek, or Nemotron, totally depending on what kind of license you need. Now, the absolute decisive feature of Tinker is its unique portability. Thinking Machines is super clear about this. Your data trains your models, never theirs. Because you can literally export that checkpoint, you get true portability. You can take your freshly trained weights, walk away, and run them on your own infrastructure forever, even if you completely stop paying the vendor. But there's always a catch, right? The Tinker catch is that this immense freedom requires some serious machine learning competence. I mean, Tinker's own testimonials come from AI labs at Berkeley and Stanford. They hand you total control, but you have to bring the data sets, the evaluation design, and all the reinforcement learning environments. It is without a doubt the most flexible option on the market, but it offers zero handholding. So for a standard hospital IT department, this might just be way too much rope.
Let's look at a totally different approach in Section 3. Forge, managed and sovereign, deep domain adaptation under EU jurisdiction.
You want to contrast this immediately with Tinker. Forge is absolutely not an API you drive yourself. It is a heavy, embedded, full lifecycle engineering program that you commission. Mistral actually takes their forward-deployed engineers and embeds them right alongside your team. They handle the domain adaptive pre-training on your internal data, they do the post-training, and the whole thing gets deployed securely on-premise, in-region, or even entirely air-gapped if you need it.
And just to put this into perspective, there is massive, massive demand for this exact sovereign approach. Gartner pegs European sovereign cloud spending at $12.6 billion for 2026. That is up 83% year over year. That's exactly the market Forge is capturing. The law requires certain data to stay strictly within EU borders, and Forge gives regulated EU buyers a perfectly clean story. You train on your data in your jurisdiction with a non-US vendor, and Mistral sees absolutely none of it.
But again, there is a trade-off. The catch with Forge is that you're trading portability for absolute jurisdiction and extreme depth. Plus, it assumes a massive level of data maturity that most enterprises, quite frankly, just don't possess yet. Did you know 42% of organizations still spend over half their time just wrangling their data? Forge is a heavier lift. It's sticky, it's expensive, and it requires a really deep commitment. Because of all that, it's actually the solution you should probably reach for last, not first.
All right, on to Section 4, Microsoft, the integrated ecosystem, customization inside the Azure AI Foundry.
Microsoft's answer to this whole problem is called frontier tuning. This option caters directly to buyers who are facing heavy legal scrutiny. It lets you tune Microsoft's first-party MAI models, which come with this great clean provenance story. That basically means they are trained completely from scratch with zero distillation from other labs, using only commercially licensed data. And the best part? You do all of this right alongside 11,000 other models, using unified governance tools directly inside Azure. And Microsoft drops a pretty massive competitive claim here to sweeten the deal. They state that their frontier-tuned MAI model matches GPT 5.5 class quality at roughly a 10x lower cost on a partner-specific tasks. 10x! Their message is incredibly pointed here. You don't rent intelligence from a shared model that learns from everyone else. Instead, you control the resulting model, and that adapted model becomes your competitive moat.
The clearest signal of where Microsoft is headed with this is their partnership with the Mayo Clinic. They are literally co-developing a frontier healthcare model on de-identified clinical data and deploying it entirely inside Mayo's own hospital system. Microsoft's real advantage here isn't just about winning benchmarks. It's their decades of experience selling into highly regulated environments. They understand enterprise procurement in a way that the younger AI labs are, frankly, still trying to figure out.
So, what's the catch with Microsoft? Well, it's this. You get absolutely unmatched integration and the highest level of enterprise support available. It plugs seamlessly into GitHub Copilot and Windows. But you pay for it by living entirely within their ecosystem. It has very low reversibility. You are tightly bound to Azure's gravity. And keep in mind, even if you use their Anthropic and Foundry option, data residency isn't automatically guaranteed natively on Azure Regional Compute. Unified billing does not always mean unified infrastructure, so you really have to watch out for that.
Which brings us to Section 5, the axis of control. How do you actually choose between these platforms? I want to pose this critical question to you right now and really think about it. What do you most need to control? Because when you line these three platforms up, the true differentiator isn't AI math or pricing structures. It's about what part of the tech stack you demand absolute power over. Is it the raw weights, the legal jurisdiction, or the system integration?
When weighing these options, reversibility is really the spine of the entire decision. Tinker maximizes your independence. It has the absolute highest reversibility, but it asks for your ML competence in return. Forge maximizes your sovereignty and depth, but demands deep commitment and serious data maturity. Microsoft maximizes your integration and support, but basically asks you to live forever in its ecosystem. None of these are strictly the best option in a vacuum. They are simply bets on what your specific organization values the most.
Section 6. Choosing your AI moat. Let's look at the meta signal for enterprise AI.
Now, I should definitely acknowledge that the board is wide, and those three aren't the only options out there. Mistral themselves offer a lighter open weights path via Mistral Fine-Tune that is way less intense than the full Forge program. Chinese open weight labs like Qwen and DeepSeek are permissively licensed and fully self-hostable, though obviously that can be a geopolitical non-starter for some folks. And of course, other hyperscaler platforms like AWS Bedrock and Google Vertex offer managed tuning that trades away some portability for operational convenience, very much like Azure does. But the through line across all of them, the true meta signal across the entire industry right now, is this massive shift we're seeing. Your competitive moat as an enterprise is no longer built on renting generic, fixed intelligence that learns from everyone. No way. It is built entirely on owning an adapted model, where your unique institutional knowledge is the actual advantage. The customization layer is exactly where enterprise AI is being decided today. Which leaves us with this final thought. Take a really hard look at your own technology stack. In the age of AI, what are you currently renting that you should be owning? Because if the moves by Tinker, Forge, and Microsoft show us anything at all, it's that the only wrong move left is to keep renting a generic model and just hoping for the best. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the future of tech.